I would like to also introduce our district staff, Superintendent Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, Chief Business Official Ms. Andy Stubbs, Chief Academic Human Resource Officer Mr. Christopher Heller, and Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and the Governing Board, Ms. Erica Madrigal. We are delighted that you're here this evening in person or in viewing us on Channel 27 or our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting will also be available on our website. In connection with items A and B, during closed session, the board received information and provided staff with direction. In connection with item C, the board will return to closed session at the end of the open session meeting tonight. Public comments at board meetings is up on the, yes, I'm sorry. We're going to be standing to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With respect to public comments at board meetings, the screen shows our procedures. At this time, is there any public comment? On to administration of the oath of office for our student board representative. So I will be going to the front here and meeting with Joe Brody. So Joe, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Joseph Brody,
Do solemnly swear
do
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Joe, back for a photo.
Should we all?
I know, I saw that. Absolutely.
First now? That is okay. Okay.
So on to item 7B, presentation by student representative of the board. Each month, Mr. Joe Browdy, student representative of the Board of Trustees, will provide other members of the board with an update on the activities in the schools from a student's perspective.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. As Trustee Haug said, my name is Joe Brody. I am the student board representative for this year and the following school year. Really excited to be here for my first board report, so let's get right to it. This is the student board representative report for the September regular session meeting. And then just structurally, this report will start at the high school and then move down the grade levels, ending at the primary school. So here at the high school, we've had a really exciting start to the year. We started with freshman orientation. We had around 120 freshmen and their parents gathered on August 16th here in the amphitheater to kick off their high school experience. Just some quick, and then so for the program of activities, there was an ASB panel with myself and all the other ASB members, who I will introduce later in the presentation. They were given a tour of the school, and they also met with their FLIR family leaders. Here at the high school, the FLIR family is a mentorship program put on by leadership and other really active students. It pairs small groups of freshmen with one or two upperclassmen, just to kind of show them the ropes of how we do things here at the high school. And then parents were escorted into the Performing Arts Center to meet with site administration. Moving on here, I was told I pointed over here. There we go. All right. This year we had our first day of school rally, just to really get all of the students going, get everyone active. ASB members were introduced. So it's President Mr. Johnny Gamble, Vice President Ms. Nicole Chia, Secretary Avery Roberts, and Treasurer Holden Smith. New teachers and faculty were introduced. So I believe we have 4 new teachers and 1 new faculty member. Ms. Folson teaching band, Mr. Patterson teaching English, Mr. Davis teaching math, and Mr. Grace joining us from the RLS, who's now teaching English 9, And then we also have a new counselor this year, Mr. Garrity, who will be handling our freshmen and our seniors. So we were really excited to introduce all of them to all the students, regardless of whether they were in their class or not, just so that everyone's really on the same page with who's who at the high school. We also introduced the seasons model. Starting last year, the leadership class actually went to Mr. Sinto's alma mater, Pittsburgh High School. And from that experience, they totally revamped the leadership class. So the leadership class now follows a seasons model to split up the year, starting with the season of start. So really focusing on beginning of the year, getting people into routine, moving to the season of spirit, which we are just about to begin, dealing with homecoming, really exciting stuff. Unfortunately, the theme is in the vault until tomorrow. So as much as I would love to disclose it to all of you, I cannot. We then move on to the spirit of service, and then the spirit of shine at the end of the year, which really highlights all of our students' achievements. And then also you can see here 2 pictures from our first day of school rally. The bottom picture is a picture of our new game that we're going to be playing at the high school all year long, called Saints Calling. So it really a way to get every student involved, regardless of what their activity is on campus. Moving on, again, pointing this way. Moving on to the Rls Middle of School, starting with 6th grade orientation. Parents and students met. There was an amazing barbecue with gotta move it here too. There we go. Amazing barbecue with the fire department. I also learned from Ms. Cox that there is now a leadership class at the RLS, which is super exciting to hear. All 7th graders are rotated through the class, focusing on building their own leadership skills while also doing a little bit of soul searching mixed in with that. And then also ASB. So ASB officers will be elected soon if they have not been already. They will represent for the whole year, and then also similar to FLIR family, they have family groups at the RLS. So it's a mix of all of the different grade levels meeting with one teacher, and each family group sends a representative to ASB. Super exciting to see all the changes that are going on at the RLS. Now moving on to the elementary school with Miss Pearson. Again, been a while since I've been there, so it was really exciting to meet with Miss Pearson, learn everything that's going on. They have morning assemblies. I was able to talk to students in Mr. Bass's 5th grade class and Mrs. Rodriguez's 3rd grade class. Super stoked about morning assemblies. They are able to meet with their friends, really start the day off right. Mrs. Pearson told me that they do breathing exercises, they do some song and some dance, which is super exciting. And then it also provides administration an opportunity to just show students their growth, show students this is how we did last year, this is how we're doing this year, and really championing and celebrating that growth and that development. Going back to the 2 classes that I met with, super exciting. Mr. Sento, looking at you in the audience, they have yoga balls as chairs at the elementary school. I thought it was revolutionary, super exciting for students. Really kept them engaged, and they were just really happy to talk about all the cool things they had in their classroom, and that was in Mr. Bass's 5th grade classroom. And then in Mrs. Rodriguez's 3rd grade classroom, great timing actually, they were doing some song and some dance, so we all danced along to the song "The Ball Is in Your Court." It was all about the importance of making good decisions while also balancing a healthy lifestyle. It was great to see all the students getting up and moving, kind of a little shift from your normal academic classroom, but also really stimulating and engaging. It was amazing to see, and it was super fun to participate, and the elementary schoolers loved it, which was awesome to see. Moving on to the primary school. There we go, that worked. Again, I was able to meet with Mrs. Sanguinetti. Amazing to see what she's done there. Been a super long time since I've been at the primary school. Don't remember most of it, so it was great to get refreshed, meet with some of the students. She told me about all of their first day of school festivities, so everyone had the opportunity to have a picture taken in front of the angel wings. I'm sure all of you are aware, but each of the school sites has a series of angel wings associated with their school mascot. It was from Give Big a few years ago. Amazing to see that they're still continuing that program. And then each student, as you can see, was also given a purple heart. I was given one as well, just to show all the students that someone at St. Helena Primary School loves them and is caring for them and will always be there for them. Really exciting to see. Students loved it. I was able to speak with students in Mrs. Ivanoff's 2nd grade class. They were super excited about their new play structure. It has not been installed yet, but I look forward to see all the new things that are going on there. And also just being in a new classroom environment with new teacher, new friends, and learning a bunch of new skills was really excited. They loved talking about all of their homework, which was pretty amazing to see because you don't really see that at some of the other school sites, but it was awesome. The primary schoolers just had an amazing energy to them. And then that wraps up my report. Board members, do you have any questions for me that I could answer just about student culture and climate at any of the school sites?
Can you actually, how many seasons at the high school? Are there 3 or 4?
There are 4 seasons.
Okay, and then what were they again?
It was the season of start, the season of spirit, the season of service, and the season of shine.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You are very welcome.
Is there any public comment? Okay, thank you, Joe. So we are moving on to board-related items, number 8A. Resolution 19-8, Resolution Against Bullying, Harassment, Discrimination, and Violence. And I will be calling on Joe again to be reading our resolution. Joe?
All right, so this is resolution number 19-8 of the St. Helena Unified School District against bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence. Whereas St. Helena Unified School District supports the rights of students and staff to attend schools that are safe and free from bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence. And whereas providing a safe school environment that ensures both the physical and emotional safety of students and staff creates the conditions necessary to foster academic achievement. And as whereas bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence, even the fear of harm can create barriers to learning and contribute to low self-esteem, depression, anger, and in extreme cases, school violence or suicide. And whereas a safe school is one where teaching and learning are not distracted, disruptions are minimized, drugs, violence, bullying, and fear are not present, students are not discriminated against, expectations for behavior are clearly communicated, and consequences for infractions are consistently and fairly applied. And whereas the most effective approach to creating safe school environments requires a comprehensive, coordinated effort including school-wide, district-wide, and community-wide strategies where all institutions, organizations, and individuals accept responsibility for their critical roles and collaborate to establish a positive environment for teaching and learning. And whereas the month of October is National Bullying Prevention Month, which is a campaign in response to the needs to raise awareness of bullying that provides schools and communities with an opportunity to educate students, parents, and others about their role in bullying prevention. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the St. Helena Unified School District hereby support the goals of the National Bullying Prevention Month and will work with a broad spectrum of local community stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, and staff to develop, implement, and monitor policies and programs that foster and support a positive school climate free from bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence.
Thank you, Joe. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions, comments? Joe, as student representative to the board, you can cast a preferential vote on all matters except those subject to closed session discussion. You may also make motions that may be acted upon by the board, except on matters dealing with employer-employee relations. Joe, would you like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 19-8 against bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence as presented?
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 19-8 against bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Joe, you may cast a preferential vote.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. I'm sorry, 8B. We do have our policies. I have to scroll through an awful lot, and I will be calling on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
I just have to start off with letting you know that this is not as exciting as the most recent reports we just had. You do see a number of board policies and administrative regulations in this item. Over the summer, the Board Policy Committee met to review a number of board policy recommendations from CSBA with regards to either new laws and or regulations. So what you're seeing here with regards to board policies are recommendations to adopt the recommendations from CSBA. The ARs are there for information for you. As you know, you don't vote on ARs. They are there as a courtesy to help you to understand how staff will put into place the board policies. We had 2 board members that participated in the board policy committee review and a number of staff members, and all of them felt that all of the policies included were minor changes with regards to legalese, and the entire group recommended that you move forward with approving all of these board policies.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions? Anything, any comments? Do we need to pull any policies? No.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
No, I'm comfortable with the recommendations.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the revised board policies as listed?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. A little late. Joe, would you like to cast a preferentials?
Aye.
President Haug, there are personnel board policies, and so he would not be making a preferential vote on those board policies.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. That's why it was not in my notes. So on to 9, student learning and achievement. I will be calling on Mr. Christopher Heller for the presentation of the 2019-2020 Local Control Accountability Plan, better known as the LCAP.
Thank you. I'm over here trying to get as excited about my PowerPoint as Joe's, so give me a second. All right, so tonight we're going to begin our first goal review of the Local Control Accountability Plan. And if we go back through, again, our 3 overarching goals of engagement, academic achievement, and conditions of learning. This is year 3 of our 3-year LCAP, so those 3 goals remain the same. Again, highlighting the monthly board presentations. This is the first of 7 presentations, and then we'll review the stakeholder report in April, have a draft for the board to consider and have public input in May, and then hopefully approve the LCAP in June to forward on to the county. So taking a look at some of the interventions and supports that we have in place within English language arts and English language development, we continue to maintain the same programs that we've had throughout the past couple of years. I do want to direct the board to the fact that we had West Ed provide ELD training for our staff, as we highlighted last month. A number of teachers participated in the Summer Institute that we hosted here. And that continues to be a high priority as one of our LCAP goals in supporting our EL students and teaching staff. In fact, we have continuing our ELL subcommittee that we have teachers and administrators sitting on to continue to further our work TK-12 in alignment to support our EL students. Mathematics. As you saw earlier, this will be a full presentation in February, but I did want to highlight some of the things that we have started that are in place in mathematics to begin the year. We do get positive feedback about the use of MAP and the support Edmentum in helping us move along throughout the year and not assess, but check and see where students are and their progress throughout the year. And we have just recently notified the Math Task Force that we are realigning our MAP schedule to have 2 assessments in October and February in preparation for the Smarter Balance assessment in late April, early May. So that seems to align a little bit better with our teaching schedules and allows opportunities for us to get interim assessments for students' progress. I also want to highlight that we are under contract and working with the UC Davis Math Project for TK-8 math coaching. This will involve Dr. Pam Hutchison, and she performed a site visit for us last May just to get an assessment of the district, and then she'll continue to provide coaching and support for our staff on various days throughout the school year. One other thing that I wanted to highlight is the intervention programs at the high school and RLS. RLS has changed their class intervention, and Principal Cox, in conjunction with their staff, continue to take a look at the intervention models as which is the best way to serve all their students in progress in mathematics. So it's changed for the 3rd year, and part of what you'll see in our recommendations is to continue to evaluate how we deliver these intervention programs and supports to our students. On the next slide, these are our year-round academic supports. The board will recall that we have hired 2 new AVID MTSS support staff, and so far the feedback has been outstanding about their work and their support of students at both sites, and how excited they are to deliver their work and helping support students. So we're really pleased with the progress that they've made so far, and the approach that they've had in supporting the AVID program. Also, last year I attended the mentor luncheon at the elementary school for the Up Valley Center, and I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't really realize the impact that the mentors have with the students until you go to that luncheon and see how much those mentors mean to the students. And it's really one of the things that I wanted to ensure that we put on here, because it's not a program that we necessarily pay for or have embedded in a lot of the LCAP actions, but it is something that I want to highlight in terms of our community support of our students and people giving back, that I think has been very critical for the success of many elementary students. The last topic on MTSS, I do have 2 additional slides on, but I think I just want to highlight the fact that, within MTSS, principals are going to report in the next 4 months on the efforts that they're making at each of their sites and supporting the mission that all students get what they need to be successful every day. And while I have 2 additional slides here on MTSS, I think it would be redundant given Principal Sanguinetti's presentation tonight to highlight them. So I'm just going to kind of quickly just show you. Right, we've talked a little bit about Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports, but just the idea that MTSS supports students in academic, behavior, and socio-emotional supports. So I'm going to get through there. And then just talk about future considerations, things that we're looking at in the future for our interventions. We'll continue our West Ed training and support. The secondary level will continue to refine and take a look at their MTSS structures because the elementary and primary sites are a little bit further along in their development. We'll continue again, as we have done every year in my 4 years, to take a look at summer school to make sure that we're delivering what we need to in summer school to help support our students and make sure that they are up to grade level and have the academic support that they need. I mentioned taking a look at the math intervention model. One of the things that Mary Allen wants to do this year is to shadow EL students throughout the day so she could take a look at what it's like to be an EL student through their lens at various sites and various classrooms and just kind of get a better sense of ways that they're accessing their education and things that we could do to help improve that. We also want to provide additional academic supports for parents at home. We're continuing our outreach to support parents as they support their students. And then we all, part of our MTSS is that culturally responsive teaching and just keeping that as a forefront in everything that we're doing to ensure equity for all students. So that's a report on our interventions and next steps. Are there any questions?
Just a clarification on page 9 where we go through the tiers and there's a percentage after that, like for tier 1, and it says 80%. I'm reading this correctly, that's 80% of the students fall into tier 1.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any comments? That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
If I may comment, is that okay? Just on slide 5, just the importance and really highlighting what Mr. Heller was talking about, just with the after-school math program and the intervention. Just being in those classes myself, I've seen a great shift in levels of support and what students are receiving and what they feel more comfortable doing, especially in the after-school math lab. It's just a great zone to be in for creative learning and math help. So I really just want to highlight that.
Great. Thanks for that perspective.
Thank you, Joe. Any other comments, trustees?
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to say that I'm happy to see that provide additional academic support, just because we do have such a wide range of educational and socioeconomic backgrounds here in the district, and so I feel that that's crucial, especially as kids get up in the higher grades. So anything that we can provide for parents, I think would be beneficial for that. So I'm happy to see that.
Thank you.
And actually, that was my comment as well, was additional supports at home. And I'm interested in learning what those might look like in the future, in the near future.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
So moving on to 9B, the written report on the 2019 summer school program that was prepared by our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Mary Allen. It is a written report, and is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees? Any comments or questions? And while you're looking, Jeannie, I'll just comment that it was a very exhaustive report. There was a lot of things, a lot of different programs going on this summer. I was impressed by the variety.
I was the robotics at RLS, the different things at RLS, the STEAM ones. That was great, and it looked like it was well attended. So that's great. That's wonderful. And so my question would be just kind of talking, kind of coming back to Mr. Haller's evaluate summer school effectiveness. So what would you say? How would you evaluate the effectiveness of summer school this year?
Wow. First of all, the STEAM program actually was at the elementary school,
Oh,
and
excuse
it
me.
was
Yeah,
run
you're right.
by St. Helena Parks and Rec.
Okay.
And it was
Perfect.
great. Just the soft data, the feel from the teachers and the feel from the kids and the statements from the teachers and the students is they absolutely enjoyed summer school. This was, for me, my 5th year of doing this, the best summer school we've had. Everything ran smoothly. The kids enjoyed it. The teachers enjoyed it. Our numbers were up. Math was changed at the high school, and the way they did math, I thought was an excellent model that they came up with, that students had a chance to redo their final exam. And so they could actually test out earlier. They didn't have to stay the whole time. And that appeared to be extremely effective, and we saw that. And I felt like the whole thing was really well done. And I think this is a model we should continue forward. I think Parks and Rec did an excellent job partnering with us for the STEM camps, as opposed to us contracting out with somebody outside of the community. Our special ed, they had a wonderful time, and there's several slides and a show that I can not do here but show you later. So overall effectiveness in my mind was great. The numbers were up. The teachers felt like the kids got a lot out of it. We didn't do pre and post this time. The teachers feel like 8 days, you can't do a pre and post. So they really wanted just to concentrate on the essential skills that the teachers told them that they needed to do during the summertime. And that's what they did. And they had a great time doing it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question, and it's probably maybe more of an opinion as well. So particularly for like the integrated math at the high school. So it starts June 26th. Is it an issue of that gap between June 7th and of those kids, kind of getting out of a routine and maybe not recollecting whatever they just took on a final and didn't pass, that would maybe be more beneficial if that program started sooner? Maybe that's just a logistic issue and it can't start sooner. I don't know. But I'm just wondering, would that be something that would be beneficial to start sooner, where things are more present in the brain?
My understanding, and Mr. Cinto can probably jump in a little better than I can, but my understanding of why we started a little later is because they didn't have all the scores in. They didn't have the transcripts updated and ready to go. The teachers felt like it would have been fine to just start at the end of June and just continue on.
Okay.
We just couldn't jump right into theirs because of their credits.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just had a quick question. Was the length of the summer school, was it shorter this year than normal years? Right?
It was. It's
Okay.
usually 2 weeks, 10 days. We had 8 days, so it was shorter. But we went 4 hours instead of 3 hours. So we just pushed our hours longer. The other factor that I didn't mention that's in the report is we offered food this year for the first time. And that was a huge success. And much applause to Angela and Letty for servicing all of our students in all of our programs and in the public library. You can see on there how many meals they served throughout the summer. So that is, for me, having a kid eat when they perhaps might not be getting the food, huge kudos to that department and all of you for supporting that.
Thank you.
And then I do remember, wasn't there some support for the food program federally that Angela was able to find and apply for, and actually do all the huge loads of paperwork I'm sure it took to get that?
Yes, it's called this Seamless Summer Feeding Program, and so she looked into the criteria and applied for that, and we're able to receive some reimbursement for some of the costs, certainly.
And the one other question I had, I was kind of surprised at the low number for the kindergarten readiness.
For the early back.
Haven't we had larger groups in the past?
We have, and Tamara probably can answer those questions better than I can as well. Tamara, do you know why we had lower numbers? They actually put out quite a few letters, but we only had 7 students show up.
It was kind of a logistic problem, I think, and Julio probably can jump in a little bit too, is that the people that were signed up to go originally had difficulty getting all of, well, not difficulty, I guess maybe for them, of getting all their paperwork in. So they were signed up, but then they did not complete their registration pack, the initial one. So that was the problem. So we're thinking about ways to improve upon that for next year.
Yeah, next year, because we had preschool for all parents that we're trying to get that. So I think for next year, we're going to coordinate earlier and maybe steal Erica's brilliant idea of having a sign up on one of the nights for both kindergarten and early summer back so that we can just take care of that. Because in the summertime, it's hard to, when people are, the secretaries or administrative staff isn't in the office, it's hard to coordinate all that. So we want to get that all done. Or not administrative staff, but the secretaries at the primary school. So we want to just coordinate that and make that easier so that we have them ready.
Moving on to 9C. This is a public notice for vaping detection devices and video cameras. And I'll be calling on Mary Ellen, so you can.
As you can read in front of you, this is just a public notice that this year we do have video cameras on all of our campuses, and we also have vaping devices at the high school level. Again, this is for prevention. We absolutely are not into the point of wanting to do we got you, we caught you. That is not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is a preventative to make sure that you're making good choices and that you certainly don't select to do any vaping on our campuses or any criminal activity. Anything that's happening on our campus, if the cameras get alerted, it is automatically going to our administrators and our M&O. So that is being monitored, and if there's something that is criminal, it will be taken to the police department. For the vaping devices, we are really into education this year. So if a student is caught with a vaping device, it'll be a 2-hour parent and child education session. We're not into suspension the first time around. If that's a tobacco product, if it's a marijuana product with that they're vaping, then it'll be education and a referral to the diversion officer. So totally changing it around for our campuses, so we're not suspending students. We want to educate our students. You can see it on the news. Vaping's not the way to go. It is definitely a health hazard. So as a school district, we're excited that we have these preventative devices up, and we're asking the students to certainly don't use on the campus, make smart choices, certainly don't get yourself into that direction for your life.
Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any comments or questions?
I have a quick question. It might not be the right time to ask this, so I'm going to ask it as well. Would students be able to use like the Bully app to report if they see there's other students vaping and things? Then they could. Okay, so it'd be
Joe,
that way.
you certainly know about that app, but yes.
Yes, so for the it's the Stop It app, and Mr. Sin and Mr. Fetters, again, please feel free to jump in whenever you would like. The primary function is to anonymously report bullying, but yes, any messages that are sent directly to site administration.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
And we have the Stop It at both RLS and the high school.
Item 9D, presentation of the St. Helena Primary School focus on equity, and I will be calling on Ms. Tamara Sanguinetti.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here to present. As you know, we've only been in school a short time, so many of these things are items that we're planning to do or at the beginning stages of doing. Oh, so I'm in charge of my own clicker here. Okay, hold on. I don't really need my glasses. Okay. Let me see if I'm going to do this right. Okay, so this is kind of a strange picture. I'm sure you've seen pictures of children versus equity versus equality, but I like the notion of using a plant because there was no bias against it. And so as you can see, all of these plants are thriving, but all of these plants are different. These plants do all need sun and they all need water. However, obviously, they need different amounts of sun and different amounts of water. And that's what we know about our students, that each student needs something different, but they need all of it to thrive. And that's what we're looking for obviously at St. Helena Unified, but in St. Helena Primary School. I'm going to talk about the growth model. Okay, tonight I'm going to speak to equity through the lens of three focus areas. One being academics, the second, increased access for English language learners, and third, social emotional learning. And I will speak to each one of these separately. Okay, so in looking at academics, is this handling? Okay, I feel like I'm not talking into it correctly. Okay, for the past several years at St. Helena Primary School, we've been implementing and refining our interventions with the goal of all students mastering Common Core math and ELA standards, as well as ELD. This year, we're going to have a focus of our instructional leadership team is to be reviewing school-wide data in both the areas, in the areas of academics, looking at not just we're going to look at the needs of our school, and we're going to be making decisions based on equity. For example, if everyone in the kindergarten is sailing along in the area of math, we're not about giving like one more resources or equal resources, an hour. Like if we have a paraprofessional, we don't give kinder an hour, first grade an hour, and second grade an hour. We're going to be looking at the school as a whole and really making decisions based on the need and giving resources, human resources and other resources based on school-wide need. And the instructional leadership is going to be a part of that decision-making process. The other piece is going to be our PBIS team. And this is a new piece for us. We're going to be really looking at school-wide behavioral data. And we're going to be responding to that data in different ways based on the multi-tiered system of support. If we think about Tier 1 or Tier 2 interventions, for example, right now when we don't have a playground, there's a lot of action, not always good action, that's going out on the playground right now because there's not a lot to do. So we're having not only ourselves, but teachers enter in that data into Aries. And so when we review that data, not surprisingly, we're seeing more behavior problems happening at recess time. So in response to that, we would then, the team, the PBIS team, would make a decision, hey, we need to get the school together and review our rules as it pertains to solving problems during recess. What are some things that we can do? So we're going to be looking, both of those teams are going to be looking at both of those things. We also have a goal of growth for all students. And as I mentioned, we've really been refining our interventions, but we really are looking for growth for all students. So the question is, what are we going to do for our students who have already mastered that standard? And we're going to focus on, we want to provide opportunities, not just for interventions, but also for students that need to be challenged. And how can we go deeper with those students? So that's a focus as far as equity as well in the area of academics. The next area I'd like to speak to is increased access for English language learners. And specifically, I'm looking at using the lens of the California English Language Learner Roadmap. And as you know, there's 4 principles. I'm not going to recite them. But the principle that I'm looking at mostly is intellectual quality of instruction and meaningful access. And I'm really excited about the work. We talked about the work that we did this summer with West Ed, but Greg, can you help me? Greg's my helper. But over the last 3 days, we have been each grade level has spent a day with a coach from West Ed. Just perfect right there. And so I just brought this today because this is a sample of the work that teachers are doing. And when you think of I am not necessarily a math expert, but I am committed to becoming a better math learner on behalf of my English learners. Because I think, I think that in the past people have sometimes thought, oh, well, our English learners can do better in math because, there's just numbers. But there's not just numbers. And the learning that occurred for our teachers over the past few days have really looked at word problems and looked at the sense in these 3 areas. What is the purpose of math problems? And the part that's specific for our English learners that I think is really going to help them is talking about the structure of a word problem, breaking apart, like what is the situation, what are the events, and what is the word problem asking you. And if you think about that, if you think about in your head, if you were trying to do this in another language, how difficult that would be. And then lastly, when we talk about the language features of math, there is a whole other language that we need to teach our students. And just thinking about past and present tense verbs, what does that mean when you're trying to solve a problem? That makes a difference if it happened in the past or if it's going to happen in the future. What are the sequential connectives? What are those words that you can notice in these word problems that are going to help not only all of our students to be better mathematicians, but it's really going to help our English learners access the curriculum. I'm really excited about that. I'm kind of a little excited over that one. The next part is part of our, as Mr. Heller mentioned, part of the equity is focusing on, besides academics, social emotional learning is a pillar of multi-tiered system of support. And we have at St. Helena Primary School agreed to a couple of items for social emotional learning. And one of them is a morning community circle. And the purpose of that is to allow students to have a transition from home to school. And for students to know that this is a safe, welcoming place, so they are ready to learn. And it allows teachers to begin to incorporate more specific teachings of social emotional learning. And again, it's 10 minutes every morning, and our behaviorist, Dana Sabin, for the first month, has provided teachers with very specific lessons and resources to make sure that everyone has a foundational skill in the area of social emotional learning. I did want to say that, let me see, I'm going to go to this one. So these are the components of social emotional learning that all of us, when you're talking about social emotional learning in the umbrella of anything, these are the 5 components that the community circle will work on. I just put a little example in there. I've been going in just to observe community circles, and so this is just my feedback to the kinder. But I have to say, I just can't even tell you how happy it makes me to be with kindergartners in the beginning of the year. So I went into a community circle. Everyone was sitting, which that's a win right there. Everyone's sitting. And then, so they would pass around this stuffed animal as they asked the question. And so the question of the day was, it was a statement, what makes you feel happy? And the students were to respond, I feel happy when I'm with my family, or I feel happy when I'm with my friends. So the little item went around the circle, and if you're a kindergarten teacher, you have to just be on your toes. So that came to a little boy, and it was his turn, and she's, what makes you feel happy? A walrus have tusks. And that was his response. And everyone's just like, what? And she's like, could you pass the stuffed animal to the next person? Just, it's just, they're so random. They don't, but it just cracks me up. The walrus have tusks have nothing to do with what we're talking about. So we just need to be moving on. But anyway, so that is the other piece of our community circle. So I believe that with our focus on academics, the English language learner roadmap, and the emotional learning piece, that all of these pieces together are going to create success for all. And then if anyone has any questions or comments, I'm happy to answer them. Okay. Okay.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions?
I just have a comment about the community circle and the social learning. I think it's really important, especially at that young age, to teach them how to identify feelings and all that. I also think it'd be important or I don't know if you've done this already, but even teaching parents some of those basic things so that we can enforce that at home, and then they, so that we're teaching them at home as well, what they're learning at the especially at the primary school.
That's
like
really
identifying feelings. I mean, I don't know if you do that with parents at all, but I think it's important that we can continue.
It's
to
a really
teach them
good
at home so that
idea,
they can-
Julio, and it would be certainly a great parent education opportunity.
All right.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also think that it's been a while since we've had the Padre a Padre parent training, but I think that it's always good when we've had a few years go by without some basic parenting classes to help parents have the support in the home to help with behavior issues. Maybe we should revisit looking at some of those parent classes again to support the equity issue that we're looking at.
I know at Preschool for All, we're working with the Up Valley Family Center on the Triple P parenting program for our incoming kinder TK students. Thank you.
One quick question. Is it the intention to have community circles for the entire school year?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
And how they will change is that we're going to have teachers kind of just do an individual inventory on each student just to get some more information. And then with that data, you can kind of get, well, listen, I have probably more than half my class are having difficulty with self-awareness. So then that community circle would be more reflective of the individual needs of that class. So that's how the shift will happen after we kind of get our basic foundational skills. Thank you.
So we move on to the consent agenda, item 10. Is there anyone present? Is there any, oh, there it goes. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on the consent agenda? Trustees, do you have any comments on the consent agenda item?
I'm good.
Is this open to any consent item agenda, or will we be reviewing?
So the consent agenda, Joe, is everything passes by consent, but if you wish to pull one item, you may do so now.
No, I just wish to direct the board to item 10I. I believe there's a small typo just in one of the names in the contracts. I don't know if that's something I should point out now or wait till the end of the meeting. If you direct your attention to the final contract with the performing arts and the set building, I believe the first name is Bill Kaufman. Trustee Pelosi, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, he might go by William, which is maybe why it's there.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to double check that one.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to business operations, 11A. We have a written report submitted by Ms. Andrea Steps. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions?
I have one quick one. So is the, because I know that we hear about the primary play structure a lot right now, is it on track for finishing when originally thought, or?
Yes, we had a little bit of a delay laying the base rock, but we're anticipating that we should be able to get everything in place and finished by around September 24th at this point.
Okay, well, that's good. That's really good. Perfect. That's all I've got. That's all the questions.
And 11B would be Miss Andrea Stubbs, approval of the 2018-2019 unaudited actuals financial report.
Thank you. And so this is our final budget report for the 2018-19 fiscal year. And here we have a summary of activity in the general fund, and so we began with a beginning fund balance of $7.6 million. You can see the amount of revenues we took in and the expenditures that went out, and with the exception of the transfers in and out, that's shown in the line there where you see the $2 million. And so that resulted in a net increase to the fund balance of about $1.4 million, of which about $1.1 million is on the unrestricted side of the house. And so there you can see our ending fund balance and the components of that, because some of those resources are restricted or board assigned or constitute part of our 3% reserve. And so what we always like to do at this point of the year is we like to compare our unaudited actuals with where we thought we were back in May or June when we were preparing the June budget adoption for 1920, and then taking a look at estimated actuals. And so you can see the components of the differences there, looking at the different revenue sources. So with our local control funding formula sources, we had an increase in property taxes with the August annual property tax certification report. So we saw an increase there of about $40,000 compared with where we thought we would be in May and June. And then also an adjustment to special education funding. Slight adjustments down for federal revenues compared with where we thought we would be back in May and June. And our biggest changes were with state revenue. First of all, we received a big one-time infusion of property tax money that was associated with the wildfires, because basic aid districts, their property tax increases were reduced because of property tax values, and so we got about $245,000 for that, and then we're anticipating another infusion for 2018 that we may receive next year. And then we've talked about STRS and PERS in the past, and the employees make a contribution, the employer makes a contribution, and then additionally the state makes a contribution to each of these programs. And in the past few years we've had to show the state's contribution. So we show the state's revenue to both of those retirement programs, and then the state's expenditures. And so it's kind of a pass-through in our book, so we just have to show it, but it's not actually revenue to us or expenditures. And so there was an increase in the amount that we had to report for the state. And then, of course, with local revenue, we only book local revenue as received. And so we participate in the E-rate discount program for telecommunications, and we got a rebate of about $24,000 there, and then some additional lease and rental income. We really try and budget very conservatively for that and for interest on our funds that are kept with the county treasury, so I'm always happy to book that at the end of the year, and then some additional scholarships and donations. And then this chart here summarizes the difference in our different expenditure categories when we're looking at estimated actuals in May and June compared with our actual actuals for 18-19 that technically are unaudited at this point. The auditors have been looking at our books, and so far we're looking pretty good. We'll have that report for the board hopefully by the December board meeting. And so we always have budgetary cushions based on certain percentages and so forth. And so we always expect to come in under budget if we're doing things right. And so you can see how we came in under budget with certificated salaries and classified salaries because we had a budget for substitutes and extra duty and release time. And then additionally, we had some retirements among our custodial ranks, and we didn't fill those vacancies timely, and so that's why it took us a while to fill the vacancies, and so that's why we've got a larger budget there. And then again, you can see the impact of the STRS and PERS on behalf there with the employee benefits. And then with books and supplies and services and operating in those accounts, typically we came in under budget, especially in our restricted programs, because we will book the restricted revenue and then have a placeholder in the supplies and services accounts. We also didn't spend as much as we anticipated with textbooks and equipment, and part of that has to do with when we decide to purchase things, textbooks, depending on the fiscal year, so we may have expected spending more in 18-19 that we're now charging in 19-20. And then with capital outlay, that has to do primarily with the Future Ready Classrooms allocation, so the board approved a placeholder of about $150,000 for above the line for Future Ready Classrooms. And we've done a lot of work in that regard with the high school English Language Arts classes and Room 303, our Student Services Support Room. But we wound up incurring most of those expenditures in the current year now. And then we did do a transfer out of $1 million, which was board approved, to Fund 17, which is our reserve, to build towards our secondary reserve. And then the next two slides summarize activity in our other funds, and so we have our food services program. The board had approved a transfer to that program of $335,000. We didn't need all of that the board had approved us transferring, but I made the full transfer anyway because I know we're going to have some small equipment needs next year, and then also we're anticipating a possible salary increase, and so we wanted to budget prudently for that. And then deferred maintenance, we charged our press box project to that, as well as other deferred maintenance projects. And then we have special reserves, one to support the board's secondary reserve goal as outlined in board policy, and then also another reserve to support our post-employment benefits. And then we still have some proceeds in Fund 21, our Measure B and Measure C, and those are allocated for technology infrastructure refresh items. We've got Fund 25 for developer fees. We charged part of the kitchen project there, which was board approved, and then Fund 40 is our special reserve just for capital outlay, and so we used some dollars from that fund to support the kitchen project and also the HVAC project at the primary school. And so with that, I would recommend that the board consider approving the 2018-19 unaudited actuals, and those following board approval will be forwarded on to Napa County Office of Education.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I missed the money with the lock around it. I'm just teasing you.
I think
No, I
several
like
people were
the
happy
form.
to
I like
see
the,
that go.
I like the format. I do like the format of
Yes,
it.
I was going to say once again, thank you very much for breaking down very complicated accounting for us to understand. And yeah, it's
Thank
great,
you.
Andy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Send it away.
Is there a motion to approve the 2018-2019 unaudited actuals financial report as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Joe, please cast your preferential vote.
Aye.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carried. Item 11C is facility use update. And this is an information only item, and we'll be calling on Miss Sandy Stubbs.
Thank you. And back in 2015-16, the board directed staff to look at our facility use procedures and fee structure, and so the facility use subcommittee met several times and brought revised procedures and a fee structure to the board for approval. Those have been in place now since 2016. And they have served us well. We've been pretty successful. We've probably grown revenue by, I would say, including because with the pool being open, I would say at least $25,000 by virtue of having our new Facilitron software, which helps us to track revenue and payments and so forth, and then also having some very clear procedures that we've been implementing over the past few years. So it's been very good program development over the past couple of years in general. And then, of course, there's always some small issues that come up, and Joe Perez, the Director of Facilities and Aquatics, and I work together to address those. This is a summary report of revenue collected in 18-19 out of Facilitron, and so there are still some accounts receivable in that regard. But as you can see, we're looking at probably realizing about $61,000 in revenue for 18-19 for all of our facility use and leases and rents and so forth. And so I am seeking board direction this evening to reconvene the facility use subcommittee probably mid-year. A couple of times to review our procedures and determine if there's anything there that we may want to change, and then also our fee structure. And I think that the underlying formulas that we developed for our fee structure are very good, but it may be appropriate now after 3 years to apply some small percentage increase across the board to keep pace with growing costs. And so I would ask that the board direct me to do so.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? So, trustees, can we give some feedback and discuss what we think, how we think we should move forward with the fees and facility use?
So the first thing that comes to my mind about this is maybe is would the topic of the, during the summertime, there was community members that were asking for the pool to be open free of charge for our community, 95 degrees and higher, you know, whatever the case is. Would that be something that would be discussed during this time as well?
Absolutely. We
Yeah,
would take
okay.
all those types of things that have come up, and that's
Okay.
definitely on our list.
Okay. Okay.
And I definitely do think it's time to put a committee together and review these, both the rental policies and procedures and fees as well. I'm curious of who makes up the subcommittee of that.
When we had the subcommittee convene in the past, it included a representative from our certificated ranks, and then, of course, Joe Perez and myself. We had a community member, so we would likely reach out, create a sign-up and reach out to previous members, see if they were still interested, and then also bring it up with our business operations committee and see if there's possibly somebody there that might like to participate in the subcommittee, and then open it up there from there.
Do you have a number that we are trying to obtain in revenue for facilities use?
No, I think it's important to look at it on a regular basis because the intent is that facility use reduces the useful life, for lack of a better word, of many of our facilities, and so we want to try and recapture some revenue that goes towards the cost of replacing things like the pool liner and the turf, and and even though we have set-asides for that, it will need some of this additional revenue to help with that.
Okay, thank you.
And one question I have is the accounts receivable. I mean, do we ever have trouble collecting those, and is that something that you are going to discuss in a subcommittee? I mean, realistically, do you wait once you haven't collected something after 2 years? Is it written off? How does that work?
We haven't had problems collecting it with Facilitron that collects the fees through the system, and I believe up front, and then there's some adjustment if the use isn't complete or what have you. And then we have certain community partners that lease facilities from us, and so they may not have paid by the end of the fiscal year to get it into the books, but we haven't had any problems, certainly not with our local partners in terms of collecting revenue. It's just a timing matter.
So I had a question. Would you say that most everyone now is, since you guys implemented the Facilitron, most everyone's using that as a process? Because I know a lot of facilities, or in the past, were just being used kind of on a handshake or unofficially. So is that something that it seems like Joe has been good with moving everyone towards using the Facilitron? So do you think there's still a lot of people that aren't using it maybe?
I would venture to say that there is very, very little handshake use left. That was one of my prime directives from the board when I first came on board several years ago, was to really shore that up so that we could be good stewards of the district's facilities. And so Joe and I have worked, especially Joe has worked very hard to ensure that all the use goes through Facilitron, and that we've kind of eliminated those unauthorized use occurrences. With that said, we're always reviewing the program to make sure that it's very user-friendly. That's something Joe and I are working on lately, to make sure the interface works well and how it's presented on the website.
I think it's a good idea to reconvene that committee, that subcommittee. I think it's and it sounds like the intent of that subcommittee would be to look at the pricing and look at some of the things that have happened in the past to see what we can, to put more structure on, and then also to continue to have our facilities available as much as possible to our public. To our community? Is that correct?
Yes, we'd really want to look at all of our open sessions, including the pool and track use as well, and some of those other things that have come up, and then make a recommendation to the board about what our current open session should be. Okay. And then we need to work on publicizing those really well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would agree with that as well. And then also too, and I can only speak to the PAC, of course, but is also having in place a structure of personnel that comes with that should outside entities want to rent that, right? Like you're talking to the longevity of our equipment that's in there, that to know that who comes with a rental of that, other than Joe Perez. I know that he comes with it, but are there other people to protect the investment that we have in the PAC? So I think that kind of needs to be discussed in that subcommittee. And maybe that's not their purview, if you will. Maybe that's something that's just district administration, but I think there needs to be a little more clarity around that for community interest.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more comment. I would also suggest having someone from the Parks and Rec department, just because they seem to always have interest in using additional facility like the turf and all that. But I think having them, if you're looking to expand and have more community access, I think they'd be a good source.
It's a good idea. Thank you, Julio. Any other comments, board members? So moving on to 11D, request for approval of contracts over $25,000. And again, we'll be calling on Miss Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. And this would be renewal of a contract that we've had, I think, in place for approximately 2 or 3 years now, with Rosemary Appel, who provides us with services to support our visually impaired students. And so this falls within our special education program. And so I'm asking for approval in an amount not to exceed $38,500 for the current fiscal year.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Joe, would you like to cast your preferential vote?
Aye.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. On to 12A, communications. The SHTA submitted a written report. It is available in our agenda. And I don't see Christina here either.
Yeah.
So we're on to the superintendent's report.
Yes, it's with pleasure I take a moment to talk with you a little bit about back to school nights. We had all 4 of them this last couple of weeks. Very well attended. Thank you to our teachers and staff for presenting to the parents, and a huge thank you to our parents for engaging and involving themselves in their child's school careers. In addition, on the board agenda, as we have in the last number of years, following my report, there is a written report by each of our principals. That report has a section on Success for All, where they talk about student and staff achievements, and professional excellence, where staff members and sometimes students are participating in some professional development. They also have included a section where they will highlight students of the month that have received some type of accolade. And then also last year, I think it was, we added volunteers, where they'll be thanking a particular volunteer or group of volunteers each month to acknowledge all of the community members that make our schools happen. Wanted also to let you know that St. Helena Unified School District will have a booth at the Harvest Festival this year. That's on October 19th, and many of our administrators and board members have signed up to join me during the day, as well as students from the leadership class at the high school. I know that they'll take an opportunity during that day to advertise homecoming and drum up some spirit with regards to homecoming at the Harvest Festival. So invite the community to join us. We'll be there to answer questions and talk about our school district. It's going to be lots of fun, and we really look forward to that. And then finally, District of Choice is the application process that we use to enroll students who do not live within our attendance boundaries. The application process began September 3rd and will be open through December. You went too fast for me, Erica. Was it 2nd or 3rd? December 2nd. The application can be found online. It can also be picked up here at the district office from Erica Madrigal. It is critical that the application be completed prior to that December 2nd. There is a very strict process that we use. All of the directions are on the application, and Erica or myself are available to answer any questions with regards to District of Choice. And that's my report for this evening.
Is there any public comment? Board members, anything? So we're on to item 13, future agenda items. We see the list for the October meeting on the screen. Do any trustees have any subjects for future agenda items that they would like to add to this list?
Can I just follow up on, I think it was last month that Trustee Kerr brought that up about the climate resolution? Are we putting that off till another month?
I believe I received direction to take that to the board policy committee.
Okay.
And so
That resolution was going to go there first?
First, yes.
Okay.
And so board policy committee
Thank
will
you.
take a look at it and make any recommendations.
Thank you for-
which means you'll be there.
Thank you very much for the refresher. I appreciate it.
Anything else? So, is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. We are now actually going into closed session. So we are not adjourning. So I do not need that motion. But I want to thank everyone who stayed to listen to our meeting tonight. And thank you for coming. And Joe, you actually may leave at this time as well.
I gave